Hey all, on this episode, we first reflect on what we're feeling as millennials, how it's evolved, and what we're all juggling. To quote Alanis Morissette, we haven't got it all figured out just yet. After that, we speak with Zandra Zuno Baermann, a Mexican-American communications professional who is passionate about helping women, and especially Latinas, harness the power of personal branding to lead intentionally and with purpose. You'll learn how a gap year and international move motivated her to redefine success and direct her skills into helping Latinas succeed. Let's get started. Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delcy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos!
Let's start the show.
Hello, Tamarindo listeners. Welcome to another episode. How you doing, Brenda?
I am probably just like you, kind of still riding a wave of positivity because we had such a beautiful week. And I know we'll talk about it later, but it's just been so nice to catch up with some listeners, catch up with some friends. It was great.
Oh, yeah, me too. I have to say, we went to the Latino Honors GLAAD Awards. Mm-hmm. And you and I have actually attended GLAAD events in the past. We went to a comedy thing last year. And so we knew that it was going to be great. But there was something about this event that felt really special and just alive, right?
Yeah, it was so good to see so many people that we follow and like actually see them in real life, and catch up with some of the comics that we saw last year. And it was a celebration of Latine and queer identity and, the intersection of which is very much under attack or has been very much under attack in many years. And so it was good to flip it and let's celebrate who we are as Latinos. Let's celebrate LGBTQ people. Let's see what we're doing together to stand up for communities. It was beautiful to see so many people wearing the, fuck ICE pins. Just wonderful to catch up with so many friends. So just big thank you to GLAAD for including us, including walking down the red carpet. It was just such a beautiful experience.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like at first we were like, oh, the red carpet. Okay, thank you. We were kind of shy. But then one thing that stood out for me was that they were kind of announcing why we were all there. And they were saying that there are all of these different media companies that are putting on all of these special interest groups that are putting all this money forward to create misinformation and really an information war against LGBTQI presenting or, folks. And that they're reaching a lot of people, like in the hundreds of millions of people a day, when progressive pro-LGBTQ media really reaches about, I thought they said 30 million. They said something about there being like a deficit of 70 million people. And so this is really important. I had never really considered about this idea of there being kind of these information channels leaning one way or another in great quantities. And so they brought us there as part of a really thanking this media landscape of folks like Tamarindo, right? And like all of these other influencers and people that were there, whose job it is to put out content that is positive toward all kinds of communities, but in this case, the LGBTQ community. And I had never really thought about it that way, about the impact that shows like this have on our society. And I thought it was a really beautiful way to honor so many different people that were there that night.
Yeah, and it's so important. And I'm so excited because this actually connects to who we have later today. It's a communicator, communications expert. I mean, it really, media and how we talk about people is so important. It really influences policy. It influences public opinion. So yes, it's so great to think for a moment that it's really what we do matters, right? The stories and the people that we feature. And by we, I mean all the people that were at this event and all the folks that work on this or that do it because it's just their mission. It's critically important because we have to counter the millions of investments and lies, right, that are permeating society and have really harmful effects. Is what we're seeing in policy. It's what we're seeing in why there's folks behind bars that shouldn't be behind bars because they're just trying to exist. This is why we see basically being trans is criminalized in Kansas and other places. So it's really a nightmare that what we're up against. And there I go again, kind of like getting spiraled into the negativity. It was a moment to pause and celebrate the positivity, right? The folks that are pushing back. So yes, okay. Such a great reflection on the Glad
Yes,
Awards.
such a great reflection. And it kind of leads me into this week's topic, because I have been reflecting and you and I have been talking about this. We've kind of been on this topic a little bit in the past month when we were reflecting on our 2016 selves, for example. But there is this kind of looming understanding that the millennial mood has shifted, the millennial mood. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. I think our generation was defined for a long time by hustle culture, right? Or by sort of like this artisanal, like everything has to be very specific kind of vibe. What do you remember hearing when we were in our 20s about what millennial culture was characterized at in the mainstream media?
Well, I think this sort of happens all the time. It feels like anytime you're the generation coming up, there's always like annoyance. Right? Mm-hmm, older people are annoyed by you. So I think there was that. I remember entering the workforce and hearing my employer, who was just a little bit older, but not a millennial, Gen Z, and him just kind of feeling like we had a sense of entitlement. It's funny because all the things that are...
You mean the Gen Xers? The Gen
Xers thought that we had a sense of entitlement. But it's funny because it's the same thing that we say about Gen Z. So it's almost like, I'm not sure if it's endemic to our specific generation or it's just the labels that are placed on those 20 somethings that are coming up. So these are the things that come to mind when I think about being in my 20s.
Yeah, I think about how people would characterize us as frivolous, right? That we didn't really know a lot about the world, didn't care enough about the world, or that we only had ambition for ourselves, or we sort of had like this center of attention kind of vibe. I heard a lot of that when I was younger. And now looking back, I actually feel like from my personal experience, it was like quite the opposite in the other direction, where it felt like we had to solve the world's problems really quickly. There was a lot that we were doing that was extreme hustle, extreme wellness, like these kinds of big topics that were looming over the millennial mind. And so I think it's interesting to talk a little bit about how that has shifted now in 2026. You and I, we've lived through this time. There have been a lot of changes, economic uncertainty. We lived through a pandemic, through these huge cultural shifts. And things have changed. So let's talk about this now. ¿Qué piensas? Do you still think that millennials are driven like they were? Are we still ambitious? Or do you think our priorities have shifted?
I think, yeah, well, I think you kind of glossed over what we've been through because it's been so much. Right?
Yeah.
And in many ways, we're in deja vu right now because we came up when we were in war. We came up when there was a lying warmonger in office. We came up when there was an economic nightmare. We were thrown into the workforce and had this pressure to succeed, but yet the economy was in shambles, and we're headed in that direction again. So we're sort of feeling a lot of that deja vu, and maybe that has influenced a little bit of a shift. The other thing we went through is a pandemic. And I feel that pandemic and maybe being learning from the generation that's coming up behind us has helped us reshift and know, like the fact that we all faced our mortality with the pandemic, I think has had the effect of many people reevaluating their priorities. We've talked about this on here before, thinking about what really matters. So yes, I do feel like that we've shifted in that direction, right? That we're really prioritizing our well-being as much as we can, but also understanding that there's systemic failures, right? There's systemic things that contribute to basically that are not, they don't jive well with what we need to be well. and what it takes to survive in this capitalist society. Like these things are in conflict, and that's why we have so much inner turmoil.
Yes, the inner turmoil. I was also thinking about this when I was thinking about my response to this question. It's so complicated because in some ways, and you and I have mentioned this before, where we were the last generation to have been raised kind of offline, and then also the first generation to be like tech native and like fully immersed online comfortably, right? And so because there are these two worlds, I almost feel like we still have the ambition to do too much. We're still trying to do both worlds to the fullest extent. So like our ambition has changed, right? We're not doing hustle culture as much anymore. We're not trying to do all of these other career things that we were doing in the past, going to school indefinitely, all the things we were doing. But we are still like, in some ways, doing the extreme of this idea of having like designing your life. We want to design our lives really online, be on top of everything that's going on, just the way that you would if you were kind of a newer generation. But we also are expecting ourselves to like own a home and have, the comforts of meaningful work and all the things that maybe people were after before the online revolution. And so it's a lot. I feel like we're still stuck in this like go, go, go. ¿Qué piensas?
Yes, I think we're stuck in that go, go, go. And there's this pressure because we see the internet. There's even the pressure to do wellness well, right? To do balance well. So that's like we're having so many pressures. But I guess trying to think about what makes our generation unique from Gen Z or the ones ahead of us is maybe this, like the fact that we can navigate both worlds. It's like we know that there's a better way, right? We know there's a better way to be offline. There's a better way to be online a little bit less. And it's the fact that we know there's a better way that it adds to the conflict. I don't know. We don't have an answer here. It just means it means that millennials, if you're listening, we feel the stressors that you're feeling.
Yeah, we feel the stressors. And I guess I'm trying to propose this theory that like we didn't get rid of our kind of like toxic hustle culture. We just shifted it over to like our new ideologies or our new ways of thinking about the world. I feel that. And I don't think I realized that until I was preparing for this, because I was fully ready to say, we've opened our eyes, guys. Hallelujah. We're no longer like driving ourselves crazy like this. We're no longer, doing these things. And then I was like, wait, I think I'm still doing it, pero instead of like building the girl boss brand on the side that we were doing in our 20s, I think I'm doing it with like trying to be the most work-life balanced and trying to like take care of my mental health, but in the same kind of vein. So I think we still have some things to work through.
Yeah.
Just to close up, if you had to describe the millennial mood in one sentence, ahorita, ¿cómo estamos? What would you say?
I think we're frustrated. I mean, we're frustrated, right? We just described one of the things that we're juggling is now being overachievers in the wellness space or in the balance space. So we're struggling, right? We have all these. I think that's the word, is that we're cansadas, cansades. We're stressed, but we know, or we're working on pushing past that. Right? We're working on, little by little, how can we build a world that makes it so that we're not feeling as pressured? And the other thing too that I want to say is that I guess we're in the redefining phase of redefining success, redefining what works for us. And I want to mention that because when we'll hear from our guests in just a moment, this is someone that has done a lot of this redefining. So I don't know if these feelings that we're feeling are unique to us millennials. We might not be alone in this quest to define what wellness, what joy, what happiness is for us. But yes, what is your sentence for how we're feeling and how to define millennial mood?
I would say millennials are still ambitious, but we're no longer willing to sacrifice our lives to prove our worth. Like that's something that we have figured out. We're not going to sacrifice ourselves and our health to prove that we're worthy. We kind of know that we're worthy. I would say along the lines of what you're saying, that we're kind of like reestablishing hope right now. And we're learning how to do that. I see a lot of millennials shifting away from like this like idea of everything being a doom, but more so like, how do we still have joy and still have the possibility of change? And I'm seeing a lot of that actively entering the narrative space, which is nice to see. And you can also kind of feel it out in the world outside in the real world. You can kind of feel that. And so I'm excited to see where this goes, and hopefully we have more answers as time goes on.
Yeah, I really agree with this. I think we are reassessing the value of hope, because we are in a hopeless place,
Yeah.
We need to find love in a hopeless place. Like we are literally like, it is hopeless if we can let ourselves tell ourselves that. And I think we're realizing how it is so essential that we hold on to hope. Otherwise it will be hopelessness.
Yeah.
So yes, I
and
think
the power that we have, right?
I love that. I think that's such a better counter than mine saying that we're frustrated. You're like, no, we're hopeful. I like it. I subscribe.
Yes.
Okay, well, this was a great catch up on what we're feeling as millennials. Y'all, if you've got thoughts, please get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. So you all know you can contact us at any time at contact@tamarindopodcast.com. All right, so I'm going to shift to letting our listeners know about our guest. So today's guest is passionate about helping women, and especially Latinas, harness the power of personal branding to lead intentionally and with purpose. We speak to Zandra Zuno Baermann, a Mexican-American communications professional who spent nearly 30 years shaping brand stories for top U.S. companies and national nonprofits, including Unidos US, where I had the pleasure of working with and first meeting Zandra. So she's phenomenal. But something else that's super neat about Zandra is that she now lives in Amsterdam, and she's leading her own consultancy. And she's going to tell us all about what life has been like transitioning from the States, her roots in Chicago, to finding and building community in Europe with other Latinas and other Latina folks. And I really love this conversation because she also opens up about her gap year. During the pandemic, many of us reevaluated life. She had a couple more things that invited this reevaluation. The fact that she moved to Europe, and also she experienced personal loss and battled breast cancer. So lots of different things that had an influence in this pause that she took. And she talks to us all about that, and she'll tell us why she's committed to helping women hone in on their brand. Because we talked about the power of communication. Like, really, it's so important that we know how to speak about ourselves in a way that is aligned with our personal values. And when we do that, the doors open for us. The doors of opportunity can open for us. So Zandra's got so many gems. Get a notebook, write some stuff down. You're going to learn so much in this conversation. All right, let's hear from Zandra now. Zandra, I am so excited to welcome you to Tamarindo. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be back and to have a reunion with you. It's been years.
It has, but I always feel so close because
Well, LinkedIn keeps us close. Instagram keeps us close. Yeah, it's great. It's great to stay connected. But thank you for inviting me. I'm excited about our conversation and our catch up.
Yes. Okay. So for the listeners who may not know, we used to work together a few years ago, back when you still lived in the US, but now you live in Amsterdam. So I just want to first start there. Like, what is it like to be a Latina living in Europe and, just relocating at this stage in your career and in your life?
Yeah, so maybe I'll set the context a little bit. So I moved 4 years ago in December, actually, in 2021. And it was at the end of working at Unidos US, a large national civil rights organization, leading communications there. That's where you and I met and worked together. And as you recall, those 4 or 5 years I was at Unidos were under the first Trump administration and were under COVID, right? The sort of beginning, mid of COVID. So they were very, very challenging years. And because of COVID, my husband, who works in hospitality, was without work for about 18 months. And then 2021 came along, and things started to open up a little bit with COVID. He got this job opportunity, and we thought about it, but it was kind of like an easy decision to make because it was a very challenging year. So kind of the pressures of the work that I had, plus that year I don't even know if you know, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And then that was also the year that my mom passed away. So all of those things that happened in 2021, we found out about this opportunity in the summer, and then I moved in December. So it was a consequential year. So that puts the context in. Moving here felt like a fresh start. It felt like an opportunity to start new. I took a year and a half off. I thought I was going to have a 6-month break, and those 6 months turned into a year and a half of decompressing, honestly, and just grieving and getting to know my new environment, enjoying life somewhere else, getting to know what it was like to live somewhere else. And that was, I know from a place of privilege, that everybody gets to do that. Not everybody gets to walk away from their career, especially what I think was a very successful career. And I was kind of like trending in all the up directions that you would expect for a Latina at the highest level of the organization from a communication standpoint, and to just turn around and say, I really, really need a break. And I get to do it in a new environment, and I get to do it exploring, right, a new life. So it was a very interesting time, but then that led me to my pivot into no longer wanting to be employed, but instead being a consultant. So that's a long way of getting to your question, because I did want to set the context. Is living as a Latina in Europe has been very interested. It's not much in Amsterdam. It's a very international city, so it's not much like other nationalities living here. You know, the kind of the culture, the country really accepts a lot of people from other different places. But as a Latina, I will tell you that living here, I feel much more Latina than I do estadounidense. I don't want to say American. I feel much more Latina. I feel like I lean into my Latinidad much more. And I think for a couple of reasons, right? Like when people meet me and see me, you know, I'm not the stereotypical looking American person. So that's maybe one. And I also think that being away, I grew up as like you did, very Mexican at home, but also very American, right? I was educated American. So I think I'm that 200%, right? 100% Latina and 100% American. But I think being so far away from home, the things I miss the most are the things from my home. The food, my family, the culture, the sort of cultural thing of, oh, Sundays you see the family and you go to everybody's thing and you're in everybody's business. So that sort of thing. So it has made me feel much more rooted and grounded in my own culture, in my Latinidad, in my Mexican American culture more than American culture. And I think people are genuinely interested. They're interested in here in Europe, in sort of that duality, and they're interested in sort of understanding more about Mexico and Mexican culture. So it's been interesting. It hasn't been hard at all.
Yeah.
It's been a nice, easy adaptation for sure.
Well, first I want to thank you for sharing all those, you know, like being vulnerable with us and walking us through that, because first of all, I'm so glad to know that you're healthy now. And I have so much love and compassion for what that year was for you, right? It was such a heavy year. But I'm also so happy with like knowing that, right, that you're feeling so rooted in your identity and who you are, and that identity is celebrated. I think, especially right now, that just such a breath of fresh air to know that that's something that people are interested in, that people love about you, and that this distance has maybe helped you appreciate it in a different way, right? In a new light.
Well, I was just going to apologize because you're just saying that, and I recognize how I rambled through all of that like it was nothing, and it's not. But I think time gives you perspective, distance gives you perspective, and it's been for almost 5 years now since then, that time period. But I do want to say that I think it's a testament that, things like that, experiences like that make you stronger, and they help you grow, and they help you grow in a different direction that you had absolutely no idea you were heading towards. And that's what happened to me. Like, me, Brenda, from the days at Unidos, like, you could have foreseen that maybe I would have kept going, and maybe next I would have jumped to a corporate CCO job or a chief communications something somewhere else. But like, the situation made me stop, and it made me take stock of things. So yeah, I appreciate your comment, but I didn't mean to make it sound like, oh, it was easy, right? No, it wasn't. But now I could look back and say, and I say this to people all the time, breast cancer was the best thing that happened to me. And I know that's not a funny thing, but for me, it was, because if I wouldn't have had cancer, I wouldn't have reevaluated my life, and I wouldn't have stopped to rethink and pause and to really make decisions that were best for me versus best for the expectations that maybe our parents have, or society has, or others have, seeing your trajectory and your career trajectory.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into what you're doing now, I just want to say that something that I've always observed about you is that you've always had this love and adoration for the Mexican culture. And I know that you're known for hosting friends and making them delicious food and salsas. And I know this is something that you've carried over to Amsterdam. So how does this show up where you live now?
I think I told you, I feel like I'm leaning in more into my culture. So first thing, there's something about when you're dropped in the place, you find your people, and really quickly, like, I've met like many Mexicans that live here. So that's one thing. And Mexican Americans. I've also found a lot of Americans that live here. There's more probably American Latinos and everything like that. I even found, and I'm not a super churchgoer, but I found a mass in Spanish, a Catholic mass in Spanish that you could go to on Sundays. So it's like there's some parts of living here that sort of makes that inclusivity happen. And there's a lot of Latinos, mainly Colombianos, and some South Americans. There's also a lot of Spanish, obviously, from Spain that live here too. So anyway, you kind of find your people. But I think in moving here and really missing home and missing good Mexican food, we have started to host just friends over. And anytime we have a dinner party or anytime we have friends over, mainly Europeans or Americans, we end up cooking Mexican food. And it's interesting, Brenda, because you start to see Mexican food through a different lens, and you're almost reliving what it's like to taste those flavors for the first time. We take it for granted, the sour with the spicy, with the fat. We take for granted that complex flavor profile that goes into the moles and the ceviches. And when I make it here, like, people are like in awe. Like, people probably have had tacos and things like that, but they haven't had moles or pipianes or ceviches or aguachiles. So as we're hosting our friends, it's been really interesting, but it's also been a proud moment to see how people react and how they talk about the Mexican food in ways that maybe we've never talked about it because we're so close to it and we expect it, but in a very beautiful way. They're giving an expression of something that they are just experiencing maybe for the first time or for not many times before. So with that, we decided to do a supper club. Mm-hmm. So we just started in December, and the idea was, how do we bring people together around the love for Mexican food, but how do we make it about introducing some people to other people and building community? Because most of the people that we have relationships with or that we're friends with are mainly immigrants or expats. So nobody is from here, or Dutch people who are very international minded. So given that people were so interested in it, and the American friends that were missing Mexican food, and then the Europeans that so intrigued by it, we said, okay, let's do a supper club where we invite whoever fits around the table, friends and friends of friends. We make a really elaborate, like, full course meal. And we explain what's the origin of the dish. Where did the recipe come from? Was it my recipe, or a chef's, or my mom's? We go through the ingredients, and then we explain the origin of the ingredients, right? The jitomate, the tomatillo, the mole, why mole takes so long, and why it used to be a wedding dish. So we go into all of these different things, and it's been really great. So we have one coming up in March. It's been really great. But it's also, for me, and maybe my husband, but more for me, it keeps me connected to my culture. It also helps me show off my culture. And it's really bringing people together. So I really love those components of the supper club.
I love it. As you're speaking, all I can think about is like water for chocolate, and just the power of food to just completely enamor someone, right? So this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, and something else that you're really passionate about is supporting women, and especially Latinas, on how to lead with purpose and intentionally. So Tell me why you're passionate about this.
In my sort of time off and pivoting to being a consultant, I decided I didn't want to go back in-house and didn't want to work for anybody, but I wanted to work with clients and on projects where I added the most value. And it took me a while to get there. And I was, networking with my colleagues in the US and trying to meet people here, and, sort of positioning my marketing communication strategy work, right? And in those conversations, I was catching up with friends and colleagues, ex-clients and ex-bosses and all that stuff. I kept falling into the same conversation with people, and especially Latinas. And the conversation was, I'm having a hard time communicating my worth and what the value that I bring to my job, and I'm being, you name it, overlooked for the promotion. People don't see me as an executive potential. I'm trying to translate my skills to being an entrepreneur. So all of these things kept coming up as we were having a normal catch up. So I fell into helping a couple of people sort of communicate their brand. At that time, it was like helping them communicate so they could get sort of whatever they were going after. And then I realized I have 25 years of experience communicating, helping communicate for some of the top brands, organizations, companies in the world. And I was very centered on brand communications. What if I take that and apply it to helping individuals, in particular women? So I kind of took everything that I had worked on in the past, put together a methodology, and started beta testing it with people that would ask for help. And I would do it gladly. And it gave me a chance to sort of prove that this methodology was working, see some results, be able to keep in touch with people, see how it was going. But in all of this, I felt like every woman that I talked to was super accomplished, deserved whatever they were going after, but had a really hard time putting words around their worth and around their talents and around what they deserved, right? And I think I finally came to the realization when I pivoted to consulting that I no longer wanted to be the chief communications officer. I no longer wanted to be an executive. I no longer wanted to be the boss of a big team. But I want to help the woman that does. So if I don't want that anymore, and I've realized it and I've sort of embraced that, then my goal is to, whether it's helping someone voluntarily or helping them as part of the work that I do in consulting, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my absolute best to help that woman achieve the professional goal that she wants to achieve. And I also, Brenda, how we're raised. We're raised to be thankful that we're in the room, and we're raised to accept the way things are, and we're raised to believe the boss. And I think after 25 years of being both in corporate America and being sort of in leadership positions in the United States, you realize that that's bullshit, and that has limited many of us from really achieving what our potential is, and for really getting the opportunities that we deserve, because we have been taught to act a certain way, to speak a certain way, to not rock the boat, to, a number of different things we're asked to. I'm not saying all women, all Latinas feel this way, but there's an element of that, surely, in my experience. But in addition to that, I think we're not taught to be boastful in the way that our male counterparts are, and we're not taught to be boastful in the way that maybe non-Latinas are, right? Or given the permission to. So I really felt that I had this experience, I have a talent for this, and there's a lot of people that could benefit from this, and it's not personal branding or executive visibility for the sake of personal visibility. It's for the sake of really achieving your professional goals.
Yeah, and maybe a way to, I think what you painted was it's probably resonating with a lot of people, that women that are extremely talented, that they can do the work, and just knowing that there's this barrier that you're helping them get over, which is how do we communicate that in a way that still feels authentic, and that gets us through the door, right? That gets us to, we can accomplish it, we could do it, but we're being passed up because we don't know how to say it. So this is really powerful. What are some of the things you're running into? What are some of the common pitfalls, or is there anything that you sort of patterns that you're observing?
So I'll paint the big picture and then I'll get into the specific. I feel that all of us are like a puzzle that we create. We put the pieces together throughout our life and our journey. And at some point, that puzzle that you love, you break up the pieces, and then you come back to it and you want to piece it back together. You know all the pieces that are there. You know how to build a puzzle. You might not know what piece to start with and what's the second piece. So everybody has the pieces to accomplish their personal brand. They just don't have maybe the clarity. So I'm just helping them put the puzzle together. Everybody has the answer to what I'm helping them build, right? They all have, it's their experience, it's their background, it's their accomplishments, it's their values, that sort of thing. What I'm coming across are a couple of things, is that individuals, and women in particular, don't see visibility as leadership. And I 100% think visibility is leadership. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there's this idea, especially now with social media, that executive visibility or personal branding is for influencers, CEOs, famous people, and it's for everybody else except me. And it's about boasting, because that's how it feels when people see people that are really into thought leadership and that sort of thing online. So it kind of like scares a lot of people and women to say, ugh, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to be boastful. I don't want to be out front and center. And it's not about that, at least not in my practice. And in my practice, I really tell people, your personal brand is your reputation. And by that, I mean, it's what people say when you're not in the room. It's what people say about you that you don't say to them, or the gaps that you leave for them to interpret. So if we're not building our own narrative and telling our own story, someone else is. And they're not trying to be malicious, and nobody's trying to misrepresent you. they're just simply communicating what you communicate to them or what you don't communicate to them. Therefore, they're making assumptions about who you are, where you want to be, what you do, and that sort of thing. So I think those are the main things that I'm encountering. And in my practice, what I tell women all the time is the way I approach personal branding is the intersection of your personal values and your professional goals. And I think for a lot of people, they say, well, personally, I believe this, but professionally, I believe this. And I think that's wrong. I think that what you believe and what you value is uniquely you, no matter if you're in a professional setting or if you're in a personal setting. And if you really want to be your most authentic self and give the most of you, you have to bring your personal values into your professional setting. And you have to inform whatever you're trying to accomplish with your values, because otherwise you're living separate lives, or otherwise you're falling into what some people do and they're building a persona. And that's a big challenge to try to keep up with. It's kind of like you're trying to be something you're not, or you're trying to be all things to all people. And if you think about successful brands, not personal brands, the successful brands are the ones that really focus in and say, this is what we stand for, and this is who we're selling to, and this is what we're about, and this is what we're going to communicate. We can't communicate to the world. We are going to communicate to our target audience.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of what I'm finding right now.
Yeah, and it's like this idea of like keeping up 2 personas or 3 sounds so exhausting. So it also sounds very liberating to find a way to find that intersection and bring those 2 things together. I love that. And maybe if you can give us like 2 or 3 tips for anyone that's just like, well, what is my personal brand, or how do I even start this exploration?
Yeah, I think a good time to start, it's a little bit like when you start the year and you say, okay, what is my word of the year? What is my vision board, or whatever exercise you do, right? It's a little bit like that. But I think your personal brand becomes even more important when the stakes are high, right? When you're about to change jobs, or you just got laid off, or you're trying to pivot to an entrepreneur, to go through a series of exercises that help you get in tune with who you are right now professionally. And what I tell people to start with is, what is your goal? Right? Start with that. And the goal could be, I'm looking for a new job in finance. Or it could be, I want to pivot to X. Or it could be whatever, I want to get promoted to vice president. Whatever it is, like really clearly identify your goal right now. And then you do a deep assessment of who you are right now in your life. And that is, what are your 3 to 5 values? What are your strengths? I always tell all my clients, tell me your superpower. What's the magic that you bring that only you bring, right? What are your differentiators? So kind of pulling all this information, go to your CV, go to your latest performance review. If you've done something like StrengthsFinder or Myers-Briggs, take everything out, like kind of like do a strategy session for yourself and take everything out, and start articulating, sort of putting together your puzzle, right? Like what is the story you're trying to tell based on the goal and your personal values, right? Like based on those 2 things as the main pillars, with all this information that you have in front of you, what is the story now that you need to tell in order to achieve that professional goal? And I always say, once you have that, and maybe some feedback from some people, I think is really important, because not because you're trying to get negative feedback, because sometimes there's blind spots and sometimes we have gaps. Sometimes we think everybody knows that we do X, Y, and Z, and nobody knows that we do it because we never talk about it or we never show it. Or everybody knows that I have a certificate in this and nobody knows that. Or someone says, you're amazing at problem solving. You're really great during a crisis. You're da-da-da. And you never even thought of yourself as someone with that sort of strength or magic or power, right? So I think it's really important to bring in some external feedback. And then I tell people to really sit down and think about an elevator pitch that is not, hi, I'm so and so, I'm an accountant, and I work for so and so company, but really about how am I going to introduce myself in a way that tells the person thinks, I want to know more. I want to know more about this person. This is really intriguing. And it's starting with, I'm passionate about being a champion for women and leveraging my communication skills so they could be the best version of themselves. Like really talking in terms of what you do, what's your purpose, tying in your purpose to it, and really introducing yourself in a way that demonstrates your value, demonstrates your strengths and differentiators, and the solutions that you could bring because of that, right? So I do think that it's a mindset shift, and it is a little bit more about stepping into your authentic self unapologetically and really being not only doing that, but I think the other piece that people forget when they're in it, say they do this work, is consistency. It is being consistent. If you say, like, this is who I am and this is what I do, you have to say it all the time in the same way over and over again so people really, really understand it. And you have to show up that way, right? Walk the talk also. Like, so if you claim to be X, Y, and Z, it really should be who you are, because you need to walk around being and acting and saying things this way all the time if you're going to be authentic and if you're really going to be sort of true to your personal brand.
Wonderful. Okay, you've given us so many great nuggets. And I think, I mean, there's so much there, but what I'm taking away is like what we're not saying, what we're not saying, right? And just assuming that people know the skills, the strength, the power that you have.
Yeah.
I think that's for me, that's my homework. It's like, okay, what am I not saying? So I think that's really, really helpful. Okay. Like I said, you've given us so many great little nuggets, and people are going to know to get in touch with you to do more of this. And I know you've even done some in-person events in Amsterdam. Maybe you'll be doing some other virtual sort of opportunities so that folks here could also tap into your expertise. So where can people get connected to you?
So my email is zandra@zwcompany.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Zandra Zuno, my maiden name. I didn't change that on LinkedIn. So in those two ways, I think it's the easiest ways to be in touch with me.
Yes, I love it. Okay, before I let you go, we do this fun rapid fire set of questions. And it's just whatever comes to mind. So first is like matraca, your Mexican sound maker. Like, what is something that you're celebrating that gets your matraca?
So right now I'm celebrating, like a lot of us are celebrating, Bad Bunny.
Yeah. Gosh, wasn't that electrifying?
I know. I think he just infused the world with much needed love and hugs and, positivity and all these things. But I had never been like a big fan of his. And until this last record came out, I really gravitated to the music. But seeing everything that he's done this year and sort of leading up to the Grammys and then leading up to the halftime show at the Super Bowl, it's just incredible how universal his message has been and how much of the world has embraced it, and how much the United States and non-Latinos, non-Puerto Ricans have embraced it. But as it relates to the work that I do and day in, day out, I just used it I had a virtual workshop with an organization last week, and I just used him as an example of a masterclass in personal branding.
Totally.
Talk about unapologetic, not compromising. I'm not singing in English. I'm not going to talk in English. I'm not going to perform in the United States. I'm going to do whatever I want. I am going to break barriers as it relates to gender fluidity, as it relates to the genre that I sing in, as it relates to what people think about Puerto Rico. talk about like really stepping into his personal brand, being who he is 100% of the time and not caring and being successful at it, right? That's the thing. I think that's people often say, well, if I show my true self, then I'm not going to get this and I'm not going to get that. And I'm going to turn them off. No, there's an audience for you. And Bad Bunny proved it. And everything he does, every decision he makes is a testament to his integrity of staying true to himself and not compromising. So I think if there's any sort of celebration of someone, it's him right now.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, perfect. It really perfectly illustrates everything that you're about. I love that. Okay, and then opposite of that, what goes in la basura? It could be a thought, it could be a person, it could be a place, a thing. What goes in la basura, what you're done with?
I'm done with these powerful, greedy men all over the world that are just horrible. Mm-hmm. And general terms, right? I think a lot of what we're seeing right now in the United States and globally, if you think about the root of everything, I do think it's greed. And for some reason, there's a lot of men at the center of this, men in power at the center of this. And you see that in the United States. But, my issue also, because of where I live and proximity, is sort of Russia and the situation of the occupation of Ukraine. That's on our doorsteps as well. So you're seeing these play out and all over the world of what's happening. So I'm just tired. I think we need more women leaders, and I think we need more compassion and empathy. And I think we need a little bit more sort of being global citizens and caring more. So I'm just done. Every story seems to be about greed and these powerful men.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Absolutely. And then what is something that's been inspiring you lately?
Art. I think I've always loved art. I've always gravitated to visiting museums, and at some point I tried to learn how to paint, and I've always gravitated. And I think here, because of being able to travel to so many places, because it's just easy in Europe to jump on a train, or everything's like a 1.5 hour flight anywhere, I've really dug deep into catching as many art exhibits as I can. And there's these studies going around about how art helps cure illnesses and cure loneliness. And I think it's absolutely true. I mean, there's something about going and seeing an exhibit or an artist that you like, and coming out and it's like walking outside and getting fresh air. So I absolutely love it. And I think it's my fuel for creativity, but it's also my fuel for mental sanity and inspiration in general.
I love it. So art heals. I love it. I
think art heals.
Well, this conversation has healed me. I really enjoyed being able to talk to you, Zandra. This is amazing. And I hope to come to one of your supper club one of these days.
Please come visit us in Amsterdam. And yeah, I'll keep you updated on all of it.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I'm excited. Let's talk about our matracas, basuras, inspiraciones for the week. Let's start with the basura, Brenda. What goes in la basura this week?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I guess another of my moods this week is I'm feeling petty. I'm feeling petty. All right. And maybe I'll inspire you to do the same thing that I did. First, let me back up. All right. So a recent friend of the pod, Juan Carlos Gonzalez, who is the first Latino Metro counselor for District 4 in Oregon. He made headlines due to experiencing a very public form of microaggression that I would argue turned into a macroaggression. So during a recent council meeting, one of his colleagues, Mary Nolan, them, asked Juan Carlos to repeat himself in English. And he was speaking in English because he's in the city council. And he's like me and you, okay? I'm pretty sure he was born here. He was speaking in English. And okay, so that's already rude enough, right? Okay, whatever. And then they glossed over it because it was just so shocking. And look, I watched the video. It could be the claim that she was saying, speak in English because you're speaking in jargon. She could have just said that other part, but she didn't say that other part. So how else are you going to receive this other than really rude, right? This is very rude. A couple weeks later, apparently Mary reflected on her words and made a public apology in terrible Spanish. She had no reason to make her apology in Spanish and then repeated herself in English. And it was just sort of like a double slap. Like, what is with your brain, Mary? So if you are inspired by this story to write a harshly worded email in English, in Spanish, and in Spanglish, their email is mary.nolan@oregonmetro.gov. Please join me in writing a strongly worded email. And that's my petty moment and my basura. It goes to Mary for not thinking.
Wow. That was a lot that went on there.
I just can't believe the audacity to then apologize in Spanish. Like, what? ¿Qué estás pensando? Like, Mary. And the funniest thing, because again, I'm petty. So this this made headlines. And now, because there's attention and people are snooping about Mary's been working remote from fucking Spain. Like, anyways.
Is that where the Spanish is coming from?
I guess so. But oh my God. I mean, it was just so thoughtless. Microaggression turned macro. Basura.
Basura. And also, let's treat our colleagues with respect, everybody. ¿Qué está pasando?
Yes.
Okay, so basura for me it's going to be a little final destination. So bear with me, guys. I don't understand basura to this idea that I'm supposed to have all of these skills as an adult. Okay, there are these skills that I just like. Guys, did you learn how to do your taxes? I had to figure that out. I'm planning baptisms and parties. I'm not a party planner. I'm scheduling appointments. I'm going to the doc. I don't know how to do these things. Like there's just all this stuff that goes on when you're an adult. You kind of have to have these skills. And I feel like this was a week where I had to do a lot of this kind of stuff. And I had hit like a frustration wall and I was kind of in a bad mood. And stick with me. I go to a department store and I'm trying to get all of this stuff done and I'm in a hurry. And you know those escalators that are just for your carrito? Just for the car?
One of my fears.
Okay. Yeah, let's discuss this. So if you guys don't know what this is, there's an escalator because some people don't know. Because I've been talking about this a lot. And there's an escalator for humans and then adjacent to it, right next to it, there's a parallel one for your cart. Humans cannot go in it. You put the cart into this machine, it takes off, it goes downstairs, let's say, and then the doors close behind it so that a human cannot get trapped in this situation. Except that my bag got caught in a hanger in my carrito, guys.
Oh my goodness.
And the car starts to take off with the bag pulling my neck and my body into the machine.
Oh my, this is totally Final Destination.
This Final Destination. I mean, I didn't know that this was the insane way I was going to die until that moment. And I just start panicking, trying to figure out how to take off the bag, trying to figure out how to unhook the hanger, trying to get through the door, like trying to survive in this department store in like 2 seconds. I say all this to say, like, I was able to get out of it really fast and like figure it out, but I was shaken to my core. I was shaken, Brenda.
New fear unlocked.
Yes, new fear unlocked. And I looked at the person behind me like, did you just see that, sir? Did you just watch me defy death? And then when I got to the front, I said to the person, your escalator tried to kill me. Are you aware of this? I tried to talk to the person who was there. They just said to be careful. But I'm telling you guys, it was a really scary moment. So basura, to just like the way that as an adult, it's just like all these little things just start to pile up on your week. And then you have a moment like that and you're just like, ¿Qué más? What else? Do I need to be in a bubble? Wrap me up.
Oh, okay. We're going to like one of those big old bubbles and you're just rolling around.
Yeah, so I survived and
Protected
I
from
made it here
adulthood and the
to
risks of
San
escalators.
Marino to live another day, but never again. Those are dead to me. Okay,
Oh my
never
goodness. Wow. That's terrifying.
Yes. Can you imagine? Final destination all the way. Okay, let's move on to something a little lighter. Tell me about your matraca for the week, Brenda.
Yeah, so my matraca goes to Ian Calderon, who announced this week that he's dropping out of the crowded race for California governor. And hopefully, by the time you all are listening to this, a couple of other people were inspired to also drop. As reported by ABC News, a recent poll by the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California found 5 candidates essentially tied with the margin of error: Republicans Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, and Democrats Katie Porter, Eric Swalwell, and Tom Steyer. And because this is dangerous, let me tell you why this is dangerous. Because here in California, we have the top 2 primary system. So we could have a situation where the top 2 candidates are Republicans. And we cannot afford to give up our state to fascists. So we need the Democrats to get it together. There was a recent California Democratic Convention, and they couldn't get it together. They couldn't endorse a candidate. So this is why we have this nightmare, right? Potential nightmare scenario. So by the time you all are listening to this, I hope that more people have dropped out and we get it together as Democrats here in California, because there's a lot at stake. So my matraca goes to Ian Calderon for having the ganas to do it correctly and step off.
Hey, good to know. Thank you for explaining that so clearly. I feel like I learned something there. So my matraca this week goes to the 99-cent store pop-up art show that took place in LA. I want to talk a little bit about it. So I pass this 99-cent store all the time. It is a former 99-cent store. It has closed. And on that street on Wilshire, there's a lot of buildings that are just no longer in use. And so you're walking and there's kind of this like a little bit of a quiet Armageddon happening all around you, where it's like what once was. And it feels a little bit weird. Like, what's going on here? Are we doing okay as a society? A recession indicator. And folks were able to rent, like this art group or these folks rented these spaces. One was like a former office space. One, it was a former Sizzler, and one was a former 99-cent store. And they turned them into these temporary art spaces. And I just loved seeing closed retail spaces kind of used creatively. Instead of seeing all these empty storefronts, it brought back life to those rooms, to those spaces. There were so many people there. It was so exciting. All of the spaces were just filled with human beings, excited about what could be with all of these empty spaces. And so matraca to people who are using and reusing spaces in a creative way in LA.
Yeah. And also, by the way, those spaces are so nostalgic to me because I lived in that area when I was a little kid. So it's really amazing that those buildings are still standing and to see that they're being used in this creative way. And I just want to also let you all know, in case you don't already know, but the 99-cent store in Highland Park is going to be converted into a Sprouts. It's not an art gallery, but I'm grateful to have a Sprouts a little bit closer to me. And what is your inspiración, Delcy?
So this weekend, I went to Alhambra for the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. And I saw dragon dances, lotus dances, all kinds of community performances. It was so beautiful to see cultural traditions celebrated publicly like that, and to have people kind of engaged in it, because I got hungry. I went to this like Vietnamese place. And when I went in there, the dancers actually went inside of the restaurant and went up to every table, and the dragon was like right in my face. And it was so exciting and beautiful, and just a reminder of how special it is to experience a city like Los Angeles with so many cultures that you can like really feel and get a grasp of and be a part of. So loved it. Super inspired after that.
Yeah, I know. That's beautiful. I've been really enjoying all the different ways that we've been celebrating this Chinese New Year. It's beautiful. It's just been, I don't know. I think we needed like a sense, like back to the concept of hope. I think we needed, it didn't happen in January. We just needed a little bit of a pause and rolling it in. And I think because I think we're seeing more of us realizing how much diversity, inclusion, being able to celebrate each other matters, and how there's this negative force that finds that disgusting. And we are going to harness all that love and all that hope to push against that nasty monster that's luring, overcoming us. So y'all, this is just like, I'm inspired by you talking about Los Angeles. I'm inspired by all of our listeners and our opportunity to be in community earlier this week, because I do feel like that wave of hope is coming, and we need to continue to stay focused, and we need to give to the candidates that we value, and we need to protect our democracy. So I'm just inspired all around.
Yes. And you know what? Until you said it, I didn't really think about it, but it's true. I did feel, and I don't know, maybe a lot of people felt this way, but the Lunar New Year this year felt like more of the New Year celebration than actual New Year's Eve did for me, which is, culturally what I usually do to celebrate New Year's. And this did feel like a more accurate representation of when I was ready to start a new year.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Okay, well, with that, this was a fabulous conversation. You all, ponte un suéter, and hope you learned a lot on this one.
Yeah, saludos a la familia, everyone.
Tamarindo Podcast is hosted by Brenda Gonzalez and Delcy Sandoval. We're also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song, and Sonoro Media's Karina Riverroll provides production support. If you like what you hear, please take a few minutes to rate and review Tamarindo Podcast, or share this episode with a friend. It really helps us grow. To get in touch with us, find us at tamarindopodcast.com. Thank you for listening.